Hello and welcome to episode 174 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark, and joining me on today's episode is the amazing actor Nick Blood. You know him from obviously the incredible Marvel TV show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, and don't worry, we get to talk all about that on today's episode. But not only that, you'll know him from Close to Me, Say My Name, Trollied, Exmoor, Most Wanted, and various different films and TV, and I'm absolutely thrilled that he's joined me today on the Mark and Me podcast. But in true typical Mark and Me fashion, I like to use the intro of every episode to touch base and talk about my previous episode. This was a huge one. It was Big E, the WWE champion. It was my first face-to-face interview that I've done in a couple of years because of lockdown, and it couldn't have gone better. It's been my most downloaded episode in 2021, and I've had so many new listeners come on board. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that tuned in and listened to that interview, and welcome aboard to the brand new fans of the podcast. I hope you stick around and go back and listen to all the previous episodes as well. But like I said, today's episode is Nick Blood, an amazing British actor and an amazing interview. So I think the best thing to do right now is to get straight to it. So here's me and Nick Blood talking all things film and TV. So Nick, thanks for joining me today on the Mark and Me podcast.
That's all right. It's nice to be here.
Nick, what I want to do today is take it right back to the very start. So can you talk to me about when you were growing up, maybe the first films you were watching or acting performances on screen that made you fall in love with film?
Yeah, I guess I fell in love with the idea of acting or being an actor or whatever before I really kind of knew what it was and I necessarily associated it with films or TV. Okay. I'd just gone to, there was a local drama group, and it was just kind of thing that the older, my older brother went to, and his friends who, your older brother and his friends are always way cooler than you are. So I just kind of wanted to go to that fact, and you got to stay up to 9 o'clock. And that was the main attraction really. And it was pretty much, and I was kind of begging my mum to go just for those frivolous reasons. And then I went for the first time, and I can still remember now being stood on the stage and doing this silly little scene where I didn't really have a clue what I was doing, but just the buzz of being in front of the audience and getting a response from them. It just immediately, I just knew that's what I wanted to do. And couldn't really, I used to think that everybody wanted to be an actor. I couldn't really fathom that why anyone would want to do anything else. And surely if you were doing anything else, it was just because you couldn't be an actor. So I'd already kind of got that bug. And then, but I guess when you were saying that, the first thing that popped into my head, I remember watching Home Alone. Nice. And I would have been the same. I think I'd probably be the same age as Macaulay Culkin, maybe a little bit younger, maybe a couple of years younger. And obviously that film is, for a kid, for any kid, it's just like an amazing fantasy, just getting the run of the house and getting to set all these booby traps and stuff. And that iconic kind of scream, I remember painting that in an art class at school. But that would probably be where I kind of then associated it with a film of like, oh, that's what you could be doing if you're an actor. You could be doing that, and that looks well fun. So as a little kid, it was stuff like that, and that kind of age, things like Bill and Ted and everything. Classic. And then there's and then I just always loved the idea of kind of getting to do that as a job. And then as I got older, it would be my brother was very much, he's a bit of a film buff and stuff, far more than I am. And I guess he'd have, I'm trying to think of like films that he'd have been the one that kind of educated me on films a bit really. And it'd be watching stuff that, he was into. So then things like, when Tarantino started popping off, but then I was always kind of interested in things like Ken Loach films. That was kind of something that really excited me when watching kind of Ken Loach and Mike Lee and things like that just kind of were outside of that Hollywood thing. And obviously very, very different things like Home Alone and Bill and Ted, but just the fact that you could tell those kind of stories with film and things were very real. And I guess my kind of it just said something about life and something a little bit deeper that kind of shook you a little bit. and hit you just a little bit harder. But yeah, they'd be the kind of films that really got me excited about film.
And you just said then that you couldn't imagine other kids and other people not wanting to be an actor. Like, you just thought that was what everyone wanted to do. When did it become a reality to you? Because obviously when you're studying at school and college and stuff, were your kind of vision still the same? Was it, that's all I want to do? I can't imagine going to work in a shop or do retail or anything else. Like, I have to live, breathe, and every day be closer to becoming an actor than I can.
Yes and no. I mean, I think I just had that naive thing of like, oh, it will just happen.
Yeah, one day.
One day it's just going to happen, because I didn't really know how to go about being an actor. I didn't have anyone in my family who acted. There was no one. So I didn't, it was very alien and kind of that, a bit of a pipe dream, really. Didn't seem realistic.
Yeah.
And when I was very little, I was very obsessed with this idea of going to like stage school, but my parents sensibly rejected that idea. One, because they wouldn't have been able to afford it, but two, because they, just that kind of, my parents, I don't think even went to university. I don't think they'd have gone to like college or whatever, but the opportunities I had, it's like most parents, it's like you want more for your kids than what you had. So that I was, fairly competent academically. So, they kind of thought I should pursue that more and kind of, have a backup, that kind of very typical kind of working class or lower middle class attitude of like, you can't rely on the arts to put food on the table, but always massively supportive. But I then kind of, as I got a bit older, I guess through my teens, I probably always thought, oh, why am I not doing this professionally by now? But when you're not kind of, unless you're going to, I didn't know about the National Youth Theatre or anything. I think if I'd known about that, it was a bit different, because you couldn't just go online and Google stuff then. So I didn't know about the National Youth Theatre, which probably would have been the smartest move for me, because I grew up just outside of London kind of thing. So it would have been the easiest route in. But unless you're in one of those major cities like the Nottingham Workshop, there's things like that you can go to. They didn't really seem an avenue for it. So when I came to apply for university, the only really obvious route to me that I knew a lot about, apart from I'd heard of like RADA and Lambda and things like that, but in my mind, they were just these really, really expensive institutions that were going to cost a fortune to go to. But I knew lots of people went to Oxford and Cambridge and kind of did footlights and stuff. And I'd have been encouraged to apply for Oxbridge. So I interviewed at Cambridge and kind of thought, well, here we go. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do, I think it was PPE that I applied for at Cambridge, and thought, right, there we go. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get into like footlights or something, and that will be me set. And then didn't get in. And all I'd done was just apply for similar courses at the next best university. So I ended up at Bristol doing politics, and was pretty uninspired by the experience, really. And I got there and I went along to, I met like the drama society, and everybody was really posh and quite serious, and I was just intimidated by it, really. I kind of told myself, just like, oh, that's not for me. Like, they're all kind of, lovies and too posh and so on. But I think I was just a bit intimidated. I hadn't really been around privately educated people, and there was the fact that their knowledge about plays and playwrights that I just never been introduced to, because all the stuff I did at this drama workshop was the improvisation and devising, so we didn't really deal with plays or scripts. So I kind of just drifted really for a while, and then it was the ITV workshop in Bristol, which used to, how like you've got the Nottingham one, which all like the This Is England guys went to and stuff. So that used to be part of the ITV kind of, they had all their regional sort of networks, and then they'd have a kind of charitable side of it, I guess, or community element to it, where they funded, I think it was Cardiff, Nottingham, maybe Birmingham and Bristol, but there was a few of them anyway. So it was the Bristol version of that. And although it was kind of run by the David Brent of amateur dramatics, but so it wasn't necessarily always the most kind of valuable education. But I met other people that were serious about acting and that were, well, I'm going to drama school, and I was like, okay, that's what I'll do. And found out a bit more about it, and that I could essentially do it like a degree, and you got it was the same kind of funding and everything. So I applied to drama school, and then I did have a bit of a fright because they changed the rules between me like applying and getting in, where you couldn't get a second student loan.
Oh no.
So I'd already done a degree, and then they changed it. You couldn't get a second student loan, and it all, suddenly you're adding it up, and I'm thinking, this isn't going to work. But got fortunate, got a scholarship. My parents did what they could, like my grandma and my auntie kind of helped out a bit, and then I just worked weekends and everything through drama school and worked the summers. And that was when it was really like, oh, that's when it started to feel real,
Were your family supportive, knowing that you'd already done one degree and you were kind of completely changing, and not saying it's a waste, but they must have been like, like, you've just done one degree and now you're doing something completely different. You're starting again, aren't you?
Honestly, no, they were just really supportive. Like my parents, because I think just because of that, my dad grew up in working class Liverpool with no money and stuff. Like the idea that you were just going to do something as kind of unstable as acting was a scary thought, because but they were never like really kind of pushing me to be academic and you have to have a high paying job or like an important job. They just wanted us all to be happy and make the most of our opportunities, really, and loved the fact that I feel so lucky that my parents like that. Like any kind of extracurricular stuff they encouraged us to do, whether it was, my dad was massively into football. I wasn't that great as a kid, but I got really into basketball, and he'd happily just drive me to basketball practice, skateboarding, and they were always like really encouraging me doing that. Same with the acting. So it was actually my parents that gave me the push to do it, because they had no plans for me to kind of, like I say, to have some fancy job or anything. So they just, for all of us kids, they just kind of wanted us to be happy in what we do, and probably looked at it and went, you're fortunate that our generation is a little bit more realistic, that you can do what you love as a job. And I was doing a play in Bristol, and I was chatting to one of my sister's friends, who I think she was trying to get into drama school or something like that, or maybe she was like musical theatre or something like that. And I was chatting to her, and I said to her, I want to go to drama school. And my mum and dad overheard me, and they came up to me at the end and said, is that what you want to do? And I was like, yeah. And they said, well, we think you should do it. And it made me a little bit emotional, because I lost my dad 10 years ago. So it's kind of, sorry.
No, that's it's good that you're doing him proud, my friend.
Yeah. But when it's just because you think about, at the time you don't, well, no, I think I was really grateful and really excited, and it was the thing that I needed. I needed somebody. It needed to go from being a dream to a reality, and that allowed me to do it. Because my dad's quite a practical guy, so he wouldn't have said that unless he really believed in me and stuff. And when it's just, I guess what gets me emotional to think that's such a beautiful thing as a parent to do for your kid, when you just want them to be happy, and you say, I'll do whatever I can to help you. It's you just, I hope I'll be that dad one day and stuff. Yeah, it's very,
you can't take that sort of stuff for granted, and there'll be so many people that haven't had that, where their parents have supported and gone, I interview people all the time. They're like, my mum and dad were dead against me going to do it, because they said I need to get a real job, and that's not going to pay the bills. And how are you expected to be in a band, or go on tour, or be a film star, because you're going to have to pay a mortgage and raise a family. So to know that your mum and dad were fully supportive and kind of sitting there waving the flags for you and helping, sort of supporting you, is an amazing thing to have. And it's sad to hear about your father, but at least now you can be so proud of what he's done, and that he you've gone on and not just oh well, I did that, and then I did
Yeah.
another degree, and I did this, or I didn't bother. You took it seriously, and I kind of wish he was here to see what you were doing now.
Yeah. I honestly, it's interesting to think, like, if he hadn't have said that to me afterwards, whether this would have just always been that dream of something you're going to do tomorrow. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because uh, I just needed that, someone taking it seriously and supporting it and saying, we're not going to be there stressing about this and worrying about you. We're going to be there supporting you, like you say, cheerleading. And I'm really grateful of the things that he got to see me do. But there's also plenty of stuff I think about him every day, and there's plenty of stuff where I just think, oh, I wish you could see this, or experience this with me,
So when you went for these first auditions, and it wasn't just studying, and you said about the TV
Mm,
studios and stuff like that, obviously the TV work you were getting at the start, so stuff like
mm,
Misfits, Babylon, Him and Her, all those sorts of early work.
mm.
Obviously, he was around to see all that, so that's pretty epic. But the big one that I think I spoke to you at a Comic-Con, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, where
Mm.
absolutely huge. That must have been the point when you really thought, my God, like this is a whole nother level. When you're working with Marvel and
Yeah.
you've got that studio and it's that size and that budget and that scope, and that's
Mm.
when it must have really kind of hit home, like this is really serious, this is big.
Yeah, that was kind of, it was a nuts few weeks, because I'd been taping for a few things, and there was a couple of other projects, one in particular that they were very keen. And my agents have been calling a couple of times about it, and then I got this phone call about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, and initially I thought it was this other job, and I'd kind of almost forgotten I'd done the tape for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then it's funny because in the States they do it slightly differently to in the UK. Before you screen test, it's a bit more of a kind of formula to how they do the casting process. And before you screen test, you negotiate and sign the contract. So essentially, when you go in for that final meeting, everybody going in has already committed their lives away to this project, and then they just get to pick who they want. So it's kind of this slow burn of things that just gradually amping up, and starting to sound a bit more serious. So you start to get a little bit used to the idea that this could be happening. And then they had originally wanted to fly me out to do a screen test in person, but I was shooting Babylon at the time.
Yeah.
And I had one day off that they could do it, so they were going to fly. They were going to fly me that morning, do the screen test, and then send me back to the airport to get on a plane and fly back, and then go straight to set the next morning. And
Oh my
thankfully,
God.
my agents were like, "You can't make him do that. He's not going to perform his best, and he's going to be
No.
exhausted going back to shooting." So we did it. I had to go into a casting agent's office and do it there in London. And because I was shooting the whole time, it was, you're kind of trying to concentrate on doing your job in Babylon, but in the back of your mind, you're going like, what if this is, going to happen, and I've suddenly got to move to America and everything. And that's basically what happened. All of a sudden I get the phone call, and I think I was with a bunch of guys from Babylon. So Stuart, my kind of little crew in
Yeah.
it. So it was like Stuart Martin, Adam Deacon, and was it just those? And Andy was there as well. Yeah, I think it was all of us. We were having like a barbecue or something, and I got the phone call and said, "Yeah, they want you to do it." And you're kind of like, right, so I've got a week now to pack up my life while I'm still shooting and just move to LA. And those guys are great. They were really stoked for me, and you're kind of, you've got that sort of like butterflies in your stomach, and calling home and letting all family know and everything. And then I essentially was shooting that all that week and barely sleeping, because you just got all those nerves and
Excitement.
excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah, and staring at stuff in your apartment, going, what am I going to take? I mean, I'm going to be away for like 9 months. Like, what am I going to do? And just start packing, and you're like, you don't know where you're going to live, and so on.
It's
Um,
surreal.
it was really surreal, and then all of a sudden, it was, I wrapped one evening. My mum and my sister and my nephew, who would have been really little at that time, they came to see me on my last day, and we were shooting in Finsbury Park area. So they came and we sat and had like a little picnic, and then wrapped that night, went home, went to bed, got up on a plane, flew to LA, got off the flight, and was driven to set. And I got to set, and I said to the second AD, I said, "Oh, is there somewhere I can just get a shower or something and freshen up?" And they were like, "No, we kind of need you to get into costume." So I was into costume, and then driven to some street in Culver City in LA, and in the blazing sun. I mean, it was late summer, so it was like blazing hot. When you kind of like see those sort of like weird ripples above the road because of the heat. And there's an upside down SUV just in the middle of the street, and I've got to get in it with Xena the Warrior Princess and do my first scene. It was just mad, really. And then a bit of a roller coaster, because my agents had said, because the way they were doing it is that because no one had met me in person, there's this whole thing that I was going to do my first episode, and they reserved the right to kind of cancel my contract after the first episode in case, I turned out to be a nightmare or something. But because I was a bit green and a bit naive, I just was kind of like waiting to find out, like, when are they going to tell me? And I was with Mo, one of the showrunners, and she was asking me, "Oh, where are you, going to be living and stuff?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know yet, really. I'm just waiting to find out whether I'm, going to be on board for the rest of the season." She was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, like, I've just got to wait to find out after, if this is all permanent now." And she was like, "Of course it is. What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Oh, right. So I better start trying to find an apartment, move out of this hotel." So yeah, it was very exciting and surreal. But then quite quickly, once you get into it, it's just like being on set anywhere else. You know? People are normal on the whole, and everybody's just trying to do their job, and
you just
all
got
that other noise.
Better weather. You got better weather and a bigger budget over there.
Yeah.
And at the moment, obviously, we're promoting Close to Me, and you've got to work with, Christopher Eccleston, who is an absolute legend, Doctor Who fan. Absolutely adore the guy. But it must have been awesome to be working on this project, and the fans are ready to see this. But it must have been awesome.
Yeah, that was very cool, and like Christopher Eccleston, just a really good guy. But also, talking about films that I loved as a kid and got me into films and stuff. Shallow Grave would have been one of them.
Oh wow!
Loved Shallow Grave.
Amazing.
And when also when I was younger, obviously, like, it wasn't like you just went on Netflix and looked up a film. It'd be like you'd hear it about it from somebody, like, there's this really cool film that was slightly subversive, and someone would have a copy of it that your brother would have borrowed, and you'd have nicked it off him and watched it with your mates and stuff. So it was so exciting watching films like that. And what a good dude! Like, I really got on well with him. Enjoyed his company a hell of a lot. And as an actor, he's great. He's very his primary focus is making this scene better. It's not he's not just thinking about his performance, what he's bringing. He wants to make the whole scene as good as possible, which I love that attitude. It's a real involvement with the whole piece rather than just focusing on your lines on the page, which is certainly, I guess, how I like to look at it. There was I told this story the other day. So there was one thing that stuck in my mind as a kind of interesting lesson. We were doing this scene where he kind of breaks breaks social etiquette and calls me out on something, and is impolite, but with good reason. I need calling out in this moment, but it shocks Rosie's character Sash, who's my girlfriend in it, and Connie, who plays Jo. But by the time it got round to it might have been like Rosie's coverage or Rosie and Connie's coverage, but right by the time it got round to their coverage, we'd already done the scene like 10 times. So whatever he'd said was just less shocking. So he just said something completely outrageous to me, because he's off camera, so he just said something completely outrageous, and you got a genuine reaction of them going, "I can't believe you just said that." And I just thought it was great, because it was just evidence of him thinking about the other actors in the room and how he can help them. And I loved him for that, and also just got on well with him. I just thought it was a good dude.
That's when when you're working with like a seasoned pro, isn't it? When they're still doing these things and making and considering everyone else but themselves.
Yeah, And there's got an enthusiasm for the job that which, you know, I think people can obviously get jaded or just a bit too comfortable. And he clearly has that enthusiasm for it and cares about it, which I really love.
A question I ask everyone that comes on the podcast, and it doesn't matter if they've been in the industry 30, 40 years or they're just starting out, but we have a lot of people that listen that are at film school or like yourself, wanting to get into acting. What advice do you give to those listeners today that want to be like yourself and get involved in acting and become, you know, involved in TV work or film work? Because it's not easy, is it? It's a struggle.
Yeah.
I believe that right now in the world, you can get yourself seen and out there through Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and all this. But getting and standing above the rest, what advice do you give to those people that are trying to kind of be seen?
I think there's a kind of practical probably advice, and then maybe a little bit more philosophical advice. I think it's good to know what you're selling. What is that you bring to that's different to other people, because one thing, it helps you kind of you can embrace that, but also, you know, there's some roles that, you know, you can get disappointed about not getting, and then you look at who they cast and you go, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. You know, there was a thing just recently where they were just, you are the right age for it, but you look younger than you are, and it just doesn't really fit because he's meant to be a dad. And you go, well, there's no point in me getting upset about that because I can't change that. So I think it's important to know that, and it also keeps you realistic that, you know, of that mental side of it, of disappointment and rejection, which inevitably comes along. And on that note as well, I'd say is that you need to make peace with the fact that you have only a small amount of control over things. Is that there's only you can only control your contribution, which is, you know, trying to learn and be as observant as you can with acting and get better, learn from people and everything around you, but accept that so much of this is out of your control. But then the other side of that is, I think practically, it's like certainly looking at drama school is useful. Look for your local drama groups. So if you're close to a major city, look at, you know, I think Manchester School of Acting do youth groups. You know, there's the Nottingham Workshop. I think the Bristol one's still going. There's the National Youth Theatre. Get involved in that, because that's a good avenue into things. But also now you can just make stuff yourself. I was talking to someone like a younger aspiring actor recently, and I just said, just start making stuff. You know, there's no excuse. You've got a HD camera in your pocket. Go out there and experiment, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter, because you do it again and you get better and you learn from it. Because you can get frustrated that there isn't the perfect role out there for you, but you can just make it yourself. And you can get frustrated that the industry isn't, that you have no control over the industry and what it's choosing to make or who it's choosing to put in it. So you can do it all yourself, and you'll learn about acting on screen. You'll learn how productions function. You'll have an appreciation for all the different departments that make a film or a TV show happen. So I think just get off your ass and do it, and don't wait for permission to do it. Just start playing around. If you love it that much, you'll get a buzz out of it.
Especially when you've got the tools in your hand on your phone now. It's not like you've got to go and rent loads of gear and try and get a camera from school or college. You can literally do it all off literally an iPhone and suddenly become a 4K, decent quality, small short video, you know? Exactly.
Yeah. And you'll just learn by failing and then failing better. There's nothing to stop you doing that. And like I say, if you love it, you're going to get a buzz out of it. That's it. You know, I get a buzz sometimes when I'm just doing tapes, you know, audition tapes, because you're just like, oh, I'm getting to do my own little play. That's and good. I'm getting to kind of create a character and create a little story within these scenes, and I'm just like, that can be loads of fun just doing that, you know. And then once you've sent that off, just forget about it, move on, go do something else, go play football, go for a bike ride, you know?
Don't sit waiting, just keep doing more. And one thing I do on the podcast, every guest that comes on, and we're nearly at 200 episodes, gets to choose the outro piece of music. So I put you on the spot here. Now, if I give you advance warning, you'll be sitting there with a list of probably 10 songs. Now, What I want, Nick, is a song that means a lot to you. Now, the episode's all done. It's edited. It's polished. When I ask the question, what's the first song that comes to your heart or your head and your soul that means a lot to you? So it can be any band, any piece of music from a film, a score, or just a song.
I've already got the answer.
You've got it. That's good. Some people are like, give me a minute and can I drop you an email? But I want it today, now. What is it?
You'll Never Walk Alone, Jerry and the Pacemakers.
Amazing. I don't like Liverpool Football Club, but I love the song.
Who's your team?
I'm not going to say on this interview because you'll suddenly hang up. But
oh god, I've got a feeling I know who.
Let's just say I was really happy when Ronaldo returned, but
oh gosh,
it was going so well.
Ollie's at the wheel.
Yeah, you can have the bragging rights on 5-0. That was fine. That was a horrendous day.
Yeah, it was a very fun day.
I liked you as well. I was liking this interview for half an hour. But I can't deny that song is epic, and to hear it when you got a full stadium of people, do you know what? It does
a special song.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. It's special. It really is.
Nick, I really appreciate your time coming on the podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's been really nice meeting you again.
Yeah, close to me. I'm really looking forward to seeing. Obviously, it's out next week, and with everyone, they'll be watching it on streaming services and the catch up, and they get it all at once. But after that, I take it you're just already starting to look at next pieces of work already. I'm sure. Is that you're already like next?
Yeah, it's always the way. Yeah, it's funny because by the time something comes out, you did it like a year ago, and you've almost forgotten about it. Yeah,
I appreciate everything, and I hope all the rest of the press and everything goes well.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Appreciate your time.
Take care, buddy.
So there it is. There's my interview with me and the amazing actor Nick Blood. What a great guy, so down to earth, so honest and open, and hey, it even got a bit teary in that interview, which I was not expecting, but such a lovely honest guy, and I couldn't ask for a better interview. We talked so much about some incredible roles that he's been in, but I still think the best is ahead of him. I can see him going on to bigger and better things and being one that we'll all know and love in the future. I want to say a massive thanks to Nick for coming on the show, and it was an absolute pleasure. If you've listened to Mark and me before, you'll know the score by now, but what I ask, if you've enjoyed today's episode, just hit that share button on your Facebook, Twitter or Instagram. I say it on each and every episode because it's absolutely vital to get the word out there for the Mark and Me podcast. It costs nothing, so that's why I'm asking you to do it. I'm not asking for your money, I'm not asking for anything else, just to hit that share button because it really does make a massive difference. If you want to find the links to all my social media pages, all you have to do is go on markandme.com. But also on there is my email address, and I will make sure that I reply personally to every email that I receive, every DM, every tweet and every Facebook comment. I've done that for 5 years and that won't ever change, so please keep the feedback coming. I love reading it. But if you do want to support the podcast on another level, I do have a Patreon page. I'm not sure if people out there realise this, but Mark and Me is a one-man team. I don't have a producer, I don't have an agent, I don't have anyone that goes out there and arranges the interviews, I don't have someone that sits there and edits it all down for me and gets it all ready to release. It really is just me. I sort the interviews out, I go out there, I've never paid for an interview, I literally set them up, record them, edit them, produce them, mix them all down and then release them all. It's all me. But what I ask in return, if you really enjoyed it, is for you to just support me on Patreon. It is little as £1 per month, and for that at the moment you're getting a minimum of 6 episodes every single month. But thanks to the sponsors of the podcast, which mean the absolute world to me, Last Exit to Nowhere t-shirts, you can be up for winning 2 t-shirts every single month by supporting me via Patreon. But not only that, the amazing guys at Vice Press News, who I've honestly spent so much money with in the past because they are the best company out there for any movie posters, jump on board, and they have given me some incredible prints, some variant posters and just stuff that money can't buy, so a huge thanks to those guys. But each and every month you'll see on my social media channels and my Patreon page, I offer you the opportunity to win these, so please go on the Patreon page, sign up and help support me, because it really means I can go out there and do more and more episodes, which means more and more interviews for you guys. I don't pay myself from it, it just goes into hosting the podcast and allowing me to give you as much content as I physically can. I'm back in just a few days time, just before Christmas, with a brand new episode. I think it's the biggest episode I've done this year and I can't wait to share it.
but I'm not going to give you any hints today. Just stick around and look on social media over the next couple of days because you're going to get some big clues, and I can't wait to share it with you. So until then, look after yourself, take care, and I'll speak to you all very soon.
When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of a storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet silver sound of a lark. Walk on